old adage is always true. It's who you know, not what you know. So yeah, I think we'll use one of these questions from Frango and Innovating MD MJ. And well, MDMJ is asking, what's the transition like going from competitive to professional? And Frango is asking, what's the best way to climb to be a professional? And I think that although you being in the industry would have some valuable input there. So I guess we'll start with Richard this time.
I was going to say Edgar would be your strongest lead-off candidate for that question. I'm sure he's been on the path to pro a few times with a few people. But for what I can add, and again, the thing about Hitmarker is one area where we try not to touch too much is the player side of things, because I think it's some companies and littler brands do come and advertise for players on the website. We have actually had Cloud9 and 100 Thieves put together like a full job spec for a League of Legends pro once upon a time, which I found strange, but maybe it's like an interesting way of finding like diamonds in the rough and things like that. But it happens very, very rarely. But this is a question we get on Instagram in particular, where it's like, it tends to be younger people coming and being like, I feel like I'm really good at this game, but I've got no idea in terms of how to like progress any further. From what we know from the pros that we do know and that we speak to regularly and kind of what their journey was, it was all about the teams that they joined early and, again, the connections that they made, because you could be the best at anything, but if you can't put yourself in a position to be given that opportunity and to show what you can do to relevant people, which is typically other pros who undoubtedly talk, and they're often the ones that are putting the teams together and who are having a decision in what the teams look like and what that makeup of the team might be. I don't want to go over old ground, but as much as anything, it can be about relationships there as well, and like who you know and who you play with and who you interact with, again, over social media. We knew Call of Duty is probably the scene that we were most familiar with as a company, and that's where we know the majority of players and content creators. And we are quite close with the likes of Tommy and Dave and a few of the UK people, and like Chris Tunn and a few of the casters we know very well because he's from Newcastle as well. And their journeys have all been, they established themselves really young, and they've kind of held, Tommy in particular has been around forever and ever and ever as far as Call of Duty goes. So a lot of it is getting in early, and it's identifying the newer opportunities. So when Fortnite exploded onto the scene a few years ago, it did a lot for us as a website in terms of bringing in a lot of new traffic, because a lot of new people were getting interested in competitive game. And as much as you can criticize the Fortnite competitive scene, it drew in a lot of new people, and a lot of those people were very, very young because the game was incredibly accessible and it was aimed towards a younger audience. And that created a whole new subset of the esports industry, loosely related, obviously, but where you had new personalities, new business opportunities, new companies that sprung up just to support Fortnite in terms of stats and different things, like Tracker.gg, who are now enormous. So when a new game comes on the scene, we tend to find that that's the best opportunity to make a mark. If you can like jump on a new game, like Valorant has been the big one in the last 12 months, where you've seen a lot of people who are probably very good at CSGO, but were never going to be able to go pro because the opportunities are so few and far between. They might have thought, right, brand new game coming out, it's obviously very similar. If I can master that game very early, then I might have an opportunity of moving from being like an amateur high-level player to being somebody who could get on a team, could be playing for prize money, and could be doing it. So that might be slightly negative, because I know a lot of people in here might actually like really love a game like League of Legends or something like that that is very well established and has been around a long time. And the path to get into the professional side of things then becomes very difficult, because there are a lot of people in there already who are going to hold on to their spots for dear life and make it very difficult for new people to come through. And the same is true on the casting side, as I'm sure James knows already. It tends to be the same old faces doing the same old games all of the time. So our advice would always be, try and find a new game that's in your remit, whether you're an FPS or a mobile player or something like that, and then try and establish yourself there. But if you are seriously good and you feel like you can go pro in the game that you are already playing, that is already established, it's trying to find your way in, again, like we talked about with networking, and trying to get you in front of a coach or a player or a scout or somebody who could make a decision and help you get your break.
Absolutely. I think we'll save the best to last. So, Josh, if you could go next.
Yeah, no, I think that's that's pretty smart, because like part of the reason why I started the NUEL was because I was a trash tier Call of Duty player who realised I was never going to become a pro. So I don't know how much my advice, like I say, I give you guys. So I think you want to listen to him more than anything. I would probably sound like a broken record, but like Rich said, I think a lot of it's down to like the networking and like who you know. It's about knowing the right, maybe players on other teams or coaches or scouts or whatever. And I think a lot of the time you maybe bump into these people when you're playing in an event or playing tournaments and stuff like that. And it's a lot of just working your way up. Like a lot of this, you might play like quite a small tournament. You might bump into the right people, and they might move on, to the higher level, and then they might have an opportunity for you later down the line. So I think it's a lot about what who you know, and like the networking with the right people. I think just to sort of really emphasize the point Egner made a little earlier, like it really doesn't cost anything to be nice to people, and I think while that maybe doesn't get you noticed, if you're not nice, that sort of reputation can stick with you, and if that gets feeds back to the wrong people who are making decisions, and will potentially be maybe in a couple of years' time have an opportunity, and you've got that sort of negative reputation around you, then that's not going to help. We see this a lot, unfortunately, with just how maybe somebody being really nasty to one of our admins, and then 2 years later they want to become an admin themselves, and it's like, well, that's it's not a great look. So we just be very, very conscious about that. But yeah, I think I'll probably let speak more about this, because I'm not an expert, I'm afraid, on this.
No pressure here, Edgar. You've been built up hugely.
I have been built up. I'm also wary of time, so I won't go into vast detail. But I'm right in assuming the question was just saying what's the difference between kind of being a pro gamer and then transitioning into being, well, basically just being a professional. What am I saying? From a casual gamer, sorry, to being a more of a professional esports player in that way. So, bit of a shameless plug, but it's relevant here. Is I've been writing blogs with Dr. Phil Batch as well, who's a lecturer in the esport course in Chichester, and we target the different mental demands that's been happening. So that happens when you are in a professional environment. So it could be obviously leadership roles, could be communication, it could be not tilting, emotional control, and also looking into the fact that you have organizational commitments that's wouldn't have been seen before if you're more casual. Right? There's greater consequences to the actions that you do, because you can't be toxic performing at that level. And if you are, then there's a lot of consequences that come from being quite toxic as a player. So you really need to be able to actually have your emotions in check. I think from the players that I've seen anyway, they've already developed their mechanics so much earlier before going pro. So I guess if you're on that journey right of becoming a pro, it's making sure you have the mechanics, making sure you have the tactical knowledge of the game, the ins and the outs really cemented, and you have that good foundation first. And then also working on, how am I able to talk to other people, whether it be as a team and also outside of the team. So talking to organizations, it's about, how do I once again reflect? How do I give feedback to other people too? How do I physically take care of myself? So there's this big stigma around esports players like not taking care of their physical health. But when you do look at big esports organizations like Excel or like Complexity, even like some teams in Fnatic as well, they really drive, you need to be physically healthy as well. So getting nutritionists in, doing, the recommended exercise that you need to do a day and getting that sorted too also helps, because that links again with, cognitive performance. So, how well am I able to actually mentally process information that's going on? And also maybe just reading, some psychology books or looking at other players and their experiences of transitioning from being casual gamer to a pro gamer too. And I think I've touched on quite a bit. If there's any things you wanted me to clarify on as well, let me know, because I know I can go. My head kind of, I just know so much about it. It's just trying to confine it into something that's like a bit of a take-home message for everyone to kind of take in. But those seem to be the main transitions as well as a player. But I definitely focus on so many different areas. But yeah, mental mechanics and also just taking care of your physical well-being as well is really important as you transition from going from a casual to a pro that way.
Thanks for those very insightful responses. I'm just conscious of time, so I'll just round it out with like a general question of what's happening in the esports space. It doesn't have to be the UK, but it can be, that excites you personally. So I guess we'll start with Edgar.
What's happening in the esports space that's exciting me? I think once again I'm going to be biased here because of psychology. It's just how much people are talking more about the mental side of things, whether it be mental health that way or just different organizations hiring sports psychologists in there, or even like organizations actually looking at, okay, how do we take care of the staff? Because everyone always focuses on the esport players, but then coaches need help as well. So do the media team. So does the CEO or whoever else is in charge as well. They need help in terms of that. So I'm seeing that transition of really understanding that psychology doesn't mean that you're messed up in the head. It's a way of helping you actually perform better, whether that's you actually performing like on the match, in game, in between rounds, or whether that's just outside as well, because you realize that you are a person. So the mental side of everything makes up so much of what you do, how you act, and how you feel. Because they're focusing so much now on, okay, who do we hire that will help us go there, is really exciting me as a person. And obviously looking forward to working with organizations that really value that is something that I've been enjoying and liking to see.
I think next we'll go to Richard.
I'll try and be quicker with the answer. But I don't know if everyone has to run, but I don't mind staying a bit later, given that we were kind of late coming in. I've got a bit more time if people want to stay a bit longer. But for me, it builds again on what Edgar said. We have an interesting position in the industry in terms of, for the last 3.5 years, we've seen exactly how many like real job opportunities are available from the middle of 2017 until today. And the growth is really astounding. And you hear a lot of numbers around esports and see a lot of data, and it can be quite questionable at times. And I think there's this PR drive that everybody that works in the industry seems to be on, that's kind of saying it's the next big thing. But they have been saying that for about 15 years now, just to keep everyone's kind of expectations in check. It is going to be huge. Everyone here today is involved still at a very, very early stage of the industry. So there's still a lot of opportunity to become somebody of significance, whether that's with a company or as a solo personality or as a player. Very, very few other industries that are as interesting and exciting exist as this one in the world and are as new as this one is. And it is tangible in terms of the growth. Like we see back when we started, I always say that we would be lucky to post like 10 or 15 genuine jobs in a week, like across the world. That's US and UK and Canada and Germany and everywhere else. Now we're at a point where we post hundreds of jobs a week. A lot of them are paid, not amazingly, but paid at least like a living wage so you can survive and you aren't working for free and starving. So the scene is growing. It's definitely happening. As much as people might have their opinions about Fortnite and the different more casual mass culture things, the more events of those types that keep happening keeps drawing more people to the scene, which brings in more sponsors, more interest, more marketing. I mean, just look at all of the marketing deals that have been done in the last 6 months across the board. I don't know if anybody keeps up with esports business news, but I definitely recommend Esports Insider as a good UK company to follow, just so you've got your finger on the pulse of everything that's happening. There are some very interesting and cool brands coming into the space. Even Tesla are now hiring for video game developers and video game engineers because they're getting confident at the point where they think the cars will be self-driving properly, and then the passengers or the driver will be able to sit and play games in the car instead of worrying about keeping his hands on the steering wheel or her hands on the steering wheel. So we're getting to that point. It's all there. By the time you guys graduate, as Josh said, in 10 years, it's moved a hell of a long way. It's moving faster and faster all the time. In another 2-3 years, the scene is going to be much, much significantly further forward. And you'll all have years of experience of being involved at a casual level, and hopefully some of you will get professional experience, but you'll be coming in at a much better time than me and Josh and Edgar did, where hopefully you won't have to build something yourself and you'll be able to go and join a really good company that will pay you well and look after you, and you'll be able to work on something that you're passionate about, which not many people in this life get to do.
Last but not least, Josh.
Yeah, no, I think the very good points from both Edgar and Rich. I think just to be biased myself, I think this event today is really cool, and I think what's happening in the university space is like really cool. And it's not because of like necessarily what the NUEL's doing; it's because of what you guys are doing as students, right? And like the opportunities that you're creating for yourselves, and events that you're creating, the teams and the clubs, and securing space at university to play games and things like that. Like I think there's a lot of really exciting innovation and sort of new ideas and opportunities for new people. Because I think, like we touched on earlier, like casting is notoriously difficult game because, like I said, people just stick around for so long. And one way to get involved in casting is to create your own event, right? Whether that's just within university or whether that's like against Warwick or somebody like that, or like within the Midlands, or I don't know. But just creating those opportunities, and they don't have to be big fancy events or whatever, or talks and stuff like that. I think just going and sort of creating stuff and getting people together and getting people excited about esports, because like I said, back when we started, like at the beginning of the time, it feels like there were no esports clubs, and no esports events at universities or anything like that. And thanks to you guys for putting the time and effort into sort of advertise what you're doing at Freshers Fairs and bringing people together, and then creating really cool and exciting opportunities for them, whether it's just putting teams together or like I say, creating things like today. So I mean, that's where, to me, I'm really excited seeing how things develop there, and sort of new and exciting opportunities that come from that.
Okay, thank you. That's actually really useful for me personally. Just a note on time. Like, who is there? Anyone that does need to go, or can we carry on for a bit further? Okay, all right. Well, thank you for coming, Edgar. It was really great to have you, and it was great to get your insight.
Amazing. Okay. Once again, as well, thanks for listening to all my ramblings. I'm also just want to mention as well that I'm kind of toying around with the idea of work experience within psychology, because I'm sure there's not a lot of opportunities right within to practice it, but it's more of the content creation side. So if anyone after this wants to contact me about it as well, about they're looking to create any blogs or any podcasts or series or anything, then feel free to, I guess, get the email off of James, and then and then just inquire as well to me. But once again, thanks for having me as well, and I hope everyone enjoys their day, and obviously just be as proactive as you can too.
Okay, thank you.
All right, see you.
Right. Okay. Do you have any idea how long you guys can stay now?
Probably got another until about 3:15 for me, if that's okay.
Okay, that's fine. All right, we'll just go into 15:15 then. I'll get some more questions from the people in chat. Okay, well, yeah, I think this one's a good one. Heidi's asking, in terms of a creative portfolio, what are most employers looking for? But I guess we can adapt that to, like, in terms of esports in general, like what are you guys looking for in terms of our portfolios?
Yeah, that's a good one. And it's something that we're trying to get better at, because we have, in the company, we have quite a few different types of creative who work for us now. So we're beginning to learn kind of what's important to them and what they look for. So when we hire for positions like that, they always have a very big input into the portfolio side in particular. And what we find to be the most frustrating thing in a portfolio is when someone will apply for what we clearly say is like a very specific type of, it could be a design job, it could be a very specific type of front-end web dev job where you need to have experience of building websites or applications. But then the portfolio literally has nothing of any relevance to the job that you're hiring for. So if we're talking graphic design, for instance, and we are being very clear and saying that this is going to be predominantly like social media graphic design, we need an element of motion design in there because we do a lot of video editing and a lot of video work on our social accounts. And then somebody applies with what is a very artsy portfolio, which might have like hand-drawn sketches in there and different elements like that. It's very cool to see people with those talents, and we get like a lot of cartoonists applying to those roles and a lot of animators who do a lot of very cool like hand-drawn things. But it's very hard for our designers in the team who exist already to then think like, is this person going to be able to translate and to match our style and to do the kind of work that we typically want to show on the social side. And it puts us in a tricky position, because then as a hiring company, you then either have to go to the person and then say, do you have anything that you could show us that's a bit more along the lines of what we asked for in terms of like being motion, being quite modern, being done in this particular style, with music behind it and different things like that. So you then have to take time out of your day to go and ask them for that, and yet you end up in like an email exchange. And when you get, as a hiring manager, like hundreds of applications per job, it's very difficult to justify that extra time when undoubtedly you'll get like 10, 20, 30 people who apply, who tick most of the boxes that you have, who are the ones that you typically have to focus your time on, because unfortunately none of us have an endless amount of time. But we have done that in the past just to give people the chance and to say, like, look, we really like your profile. You've obviously got a lot of talent in that kind of specific sector. And I think like we could definitely use like your characters and designs for different things. Like it could open up what we do more significantly. But can you actually do the work that we are hiring for, that we like need to be done on a day-by-day basis? And it's kind of rare that you'll get somebody that pleasantly surprises you with like a list of things that they've done that they can show that they can. But then you end up in a situation where you then would have to ask them to do something specifically. And then you get into that very dodgy area of, I don't think we could ever ask somebody to do like a trial for us and not pay them for it, because they're then giving up like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours of their time to do something extra, to try and prove that they can do the job. But then that's time that should be paid, really, because they're taking time out of anything else that they could be doing. So that is make the portfolio relevant. It's kind of like, I know you can only do so much work, but I honestly don't mind if it's work that you've done for professional clients or just something that you've worked on in your own time. We just want to see your talent, like on a website or in a PDF or however you present it. You just have to show what you can do, and try and make the portfolio fit what the job is asking for. So that might take a bit more time in your application process, but put the most relevant stuff first, like the thing that you think is most relevant to that particular position. Make sure that you give that like the headline space in the portfolio. But PDF, we'd always recommend, if you're a designer, if you've got web capabilities and you can build yourself a website, like an interactive portfolio, that always plays well because it shows that you've thought about it and you're trying to separate yourself from the crowd a little bit. But that is definitely the main thing. Any kind of portfolio, don't just have like one stock portfolio that you send to everybody, because it's never going to fulfill the needs that everybody has. Try and just select a few bits of your work that are most accurate and most relevant. If you do want to go the extra mile, we have had applications in the past where they've made something for Hitmarker in like a Hitmarker style, to kind of just show like, look, I can clearly do this. It's no problem. And that goes a long way. But I know that takes extra time to do the application, which unfortunately people sometimes don't have.
Josh, do you have any words that you want to say for that?
It's hard to sort of add to that. I think they're all very good points. Again, I think it goes back to something we mentioned earlier. It's just trying to make it easy for the people who have to make the decisions. So, like I said, if you can come to them with something relevant, that goes a long way. I would just say, like, just putting a portfolio together to start with, like, is a big stage forward, because you should have a lot of people just messaging out of the blue, like, oh, I think I'm good at doing graphic design, and we'd like to do some work for the NUEL. It's like, all right, can we see something? Yeah, I think just putting something together to start with, is a big step forward. I think for us as well, it probably adds. I don't think it's essential, but I think it adds a lot of confidence if we can see where some of your work's being used in sort of like a real world context as well. Doesn't need to be you've done something, doing any paid work, for example, but if you designed a flyer for the society, for example, or made a little website for an event that you're running or something like that, right? Like, it doesn't need to be a massive project, but I think for a lot of, I think sometimes it's difficult when somebody hasn't got necessarily clear experience. You're taking a bit of a gamble on that person, where it's quite different from maybe designing or working in a conceptual way to then actually having to work to requirements and satisfying the company that you're working for and their users and things like that. So I think any sort of like real world application that you can demonstrate to what you've done goes a long way. Just again makes the for us when we're making decisions about to hire, when we're making decisions on who to hire, it just helps us build confidence in being able to choose you.
Yeah, that's a very good point there. There are a couple more questions. I think there's more of a general one here. How do you feel that the general perception of esports has changed after COVID, and have there been more like, have you seen more interest in esports post-COVID?
I'll let you lead off this time, Josh.
Cheers. Yeah, definitely. I think it's certainly hit probably more mainstream audience. I think when there was all that vacuum of sport being shown on TV or whatever, and they were showing like the F1, the virtual F1 basically, and all that type of thing. Like I think that sort of demonstrated to a lot of people just in the mainstream, whether that's from an audience point of view of some of these bigger companies, that esports has a lot of value, and it's something that they need to look at investing more and getting involved in. And again, because it's a lot of what we do can be done online. I think it's sort of drawn a lot of interest from people when they've had very limited things to do. So I think it's definitely been shown in a positive light. I think just in general, as years sort of like tick on, I think esports gives more and more credibility, more and more popularity. Like Rich touched on earlier, like things like Fortnite came in, and stuff like that. I remember, boomers asking me, going, "Oh, like I've seen this, Fortnite World Cup, and this kid from the UK has won like $1 million or whatever. Like that's really cool. Seeing that on the news. Like, do you do stuff like that?" And I'm like, "Well, we don't quite have off $1 million out, but yeah, that's the sort of thing we've been working on." And it's quite interesting. So like I said, I've been doing this for a little while now, and people still don't really understand what my job is or what the NUEL does or whatever. If you're talking to older people or people who are not familiar with esports, but just those sort of like stories that appear on the news, things like that, I think help sort of like give them a little bit more context and help sort of build their understanding of what esports is and what it does and things like that. So yeah, I think it's going to keep growing. I would say it's not inevitable. It's going to it requires a lot of hard work to keep growing the industry and to keep pushing things forward. And I think this is why it's really exciting that we've got all these really talented and passionate students sort of coming through now and wanting to sort of make an impact. I think like Richard mentioned earlier, like you can make an impact and you will help grow this space if you're willing to put the work in, and I guess like we said earlier, be patient in sort of developing and sort of getting into sort of bigger and better roles. So I think it's an incredibly exciting time to be getting involved and helping to shape the future of the industry.
Yeah, okay, I think that's a pretty good note to end on. Thank you both for coming in, and I know I gained a lot from that talk, and I'm sure a lot of people in the audience gained a lot. So yeah, thank you both for taking the time to do this, and yeah.
It was a pleasure. Like I said, I'm honestly really impressed that so many people are happy to come and sit and watch us talk on a Saturday afternoon. So kudos to everyone, and hope everyone has a great weekend.
Thank you.
Yeah, likewise. And thanks, James, for organising this as well, and for everybody else who's been involved as well. So it's a great event. It's like I say, it's great to see everybody here. So yeah, thank you for your time. And if you've got any questions or you want to know more, just feel free to hit me up on Discord or LinkedIn, or I think somebody asked about adding people on LinkedIn earlier. Yeah, feel free to drop us a message, and more than happy to answer any queries there.
Yeah, same here as well. I'm more than happy to help, definitely.
Okay. I think we'll call it a wrap there. All right. Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys. Bye. Have a good weekend.